Thank you, everybody. This has been dubbed Carbon Day, but it's effectively a great green action day for this nation. I want to begin by congratulating this Prime Minister and Ministers Combet and Swan and their teams for being the presiding officer of the Cabinet Subcommittee, which has led to this remarkably good outcome for Australia. I also want to thank my colleague Christine Milne, who has been a driving force not just for the establishment of this committee. Without her there would not be a committee, but also for many of the great ideas which are part of the outcome today and which have been a result of her great knowledge of what's happening in this country, but perhaps more particularly in the international scene, ideas that Australia has been able to take up and develop in tackling dangerous climate change. Also, my colleague, the member for Melbourne, Adam Bandt, who's been enormously fruitful and helpful in our way through to this outcome. And I must pay tribute to Tony Windsor and Rob Oakeshott. They've been very, very fine contributors, and they've shown a great deal of statespersonship in this outcome, and their electorates and the bush is going to get a real dividend today because they had the gumption to take this on and to see it through and to make sure there is a rural and regional dividend which is so obvious in this outcome. We are on a planet facing catastrophic climate change. The impact will be 5 to 20% of the wealth of our grandchildren if we don't act on it, as Maggie Thatcher said 20 years ago. And I heard it in the government's press conference just now, I think from the Treasurer. Every delay here makes things more expensive on real action. But we are here in the process of saving the Great Barrier Reef, Kakadu, Ningaloo, the highlands right across this, the snow country right across the southeast of Australia, our biodiversity, the wonderful wildlife of this nation, both on land and in our oceans, and giving that across safely and securely to the children and grandchildren of this nation and of the whole planet. And this today is a world-leading outcome. It is going to lead to better outcomes at Durban at the next international conference on climate change. And if you look at equivalent countries, Russia, Canada, China, New Zealand, the United States, Australia has broken out of the do little or don't break through into joining the leading countries in the world to become a world leader. We can be very, very proud as Australians of this outcome today. I just name a couple of the particular breakthroughs. You'll note that the target for greenhouse gas pollution reduction by 2050 has gone to 80% reduction for the country from 60% as was previously mooted. There is a biodiversity fund of nearly $1 billion. This is going to help in rural and regional Australia for such things as protecting our woodlands, but in particular protecting our native species, just like the koala, which is rapidly headed towards extinction under the impact of climate change and loss of habitat. There will be, on Treasury advice, no new coal-fired power stations in this country, and very likely the closure of some of the dirtiest and most polluting power stations in the country, coal-burning power stations. And Christine will give more detail on this in a moment, but a $10 billion fund for renewable energy that wasn't there with the CPRS, and it is going to help this country's trajectory from being a fossil fuel burning country through to a renewable country, taking its place at the lead of the world with job creation, economic well-being, export income, and a much safer lifestyle as we move to mid-century. I'm very, very pleased, very proud as leader of the Greens, to have this outcome. We know it's just a fact of life that we're getting this outcome because we were here and because we had a Prime Minister and a Labor government which had the national responsibility to take this on along with the independents who are involved. It's a great day for Australia. It's a historic day for Australia, and I don't think there's ever been an outcome environmentally driven to protect the well-being of Australians now and into the future that can match this one in Australian governance history. Christine.
Thank you, Bob. Well, this is an historic moment in Australia. This is the moment where Australia turns its back on the fossil fuel age and turns its face towards the greatest challenge of the 21st century, and that is addressing global warming. And not only are we turning our face to that challenge, but we're stepping up. We have, in this package, managed to change the way Australia thinks about the science. This is a critical component of the package. By moving to an 80% reduction target by 2050, by going to a carbon budgeting approach, and with a climate authority, an independent climate authority, which will look at new developments in the science, what's happening with international obligations, and be able to translate those into the caps that are being set and recommended by that authority to the Parliament. We were sending a signal to the world that Australia is now prepared to look at what is its fair share in terms of the burden that developed countries have to take on in order to guarantee our children the chance of a safe climate. This is the big outcome today. That's why it's so historic. We have a whole generation of Australians who will be looking at this and saying, thank you, you have given us the opportunity to now work for a safe climate. In terms of specifics of the scheme, there are several improvements there that the Greens have secured. In the actual emissions trading part of this package, people will notice there is now a floor price. There wasn't one there before. So this package will start, the scheme will start with a $23 price, going to meet an international price projected to be about $25.40 in 2015. But there will be a floor price starting at $15 at the time we move to flexible trading. This is anticipation and recognising that we want to make sure that there is certainty for investors in the renewable energy sector. The $10 billion into renewable energy is very exciting. It recognises that the price isn't high enough to drive the revolution in renewables that we need, and therefore we're going with a major set of complementary measures for renewable energy. We have ARENA, the new Australian Renewable Energy Agency, which will deal with the early research and development commercialisation, moving through the whole spectrum till we get to the other end, the finance corporation, being able not only to provide loans but also to leverage private sector capital. So that's a fantastic improvement. On energy efficiency, again, this package allows us to transform our sectors, our heavy industrial sectors, by providing incentives for them to move to more energy efficient forms of production. Then in the land sector, and this is also incredibly exciting, to have a biodiversity fund which says we know in the face of climate change we need to build resilience in our ecosystems, and so we have the biodiversity fund to do that. And of course with the carbon farming initiative there is much greater sophistication than previously, so that people will be rewarded for avoided deforestation and degradation on one hand, and on the other hand we have also made a change so that biomass from native forests will no longer be able to earn certificates under the Renewable Energy Target Scheme. So it's a big win for Australia's biodiversity, a big promotion for renewable energy and all the businesses and jobs that come from that, and a much better emissions trading scheme with real ambition on the climate.
Thanks. I'd just like to pay tribute to the extraordinary historic task that the people of Melbourne have achieved today. we went to the last election calling for urgent action on climate change, and it was the #1 issue in my electorate. And after Melbourne made history by electing a Green for the first time, we were then in a position to sit down and negotiate with the Gillard government about the continuation of that government. And the #1 thing that we asked for was urgent action on climate change. And I'm really pleased that less than a year into the term of this government, we have helped deliver a kickstart for Australia's clean energy future. We went to the last election with a proposal for a circuit breaker of $23 a tonne for the carbon price, moving up to an emissions trading scheme. And we've not only delivered that, but so much more. We've got $10 billion for renewable and clean energy. We've got a new $3 billion clean energy fund. And we're now going to see dirty power stations like Hazelwood start to close, and we will not see any more commercial coal-fired power stations built in this country. And it's an extraordinary effort, and I want to acknowledge the great step that the people of Melbourne took and the national and world impact they had by going green at the last election.
And just before I open this up to questions, I must say, every state has got a big dividend coming out of this, but not least Tasmania. Tasmania tends to have one of the lowest income settings in the country, and therefore will benefit disproportionately from the generous household compensation that's involved in this program. The alternative program from the Coalition, of course, has no household compensation at all. And the impact of the Biodiversity Fund and the changes in the setting regarding renewable energy accreditation of forest furnaces is going to be, these are amongst the wins for Tasmania, and we're very